You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Ethan Hristodoulou.
Welcome back, everyone, to more of the Greeks Gridiron. I am Ethan Hristodoulou. We're talking best free agents fits here today, and I am focusing on none other than the Cleveland Browns in this video here. $27.7 million under the cap, so some money to play with as they go through this free agent period that's coming up here in about 10 days, actually. 10 days to be exact here. It starts March 16th, so as always, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, comment down below, my Browns fans. Who would you like to see the Browns go after in this free agent period? A lot of guys we can discuss here, but I have two guys specifically that I would like to see the Browns go after that I think would be solid fits if they do become available. Now, I have a guy for offense, I have a guy for defense. We'll focus on the defensive side first, then we'll hit the offensive player second. The guy that I have selected here for the defense on the Cleveland Browns is going to be an interior guy. I don't know if he's going to be available or not. It really depends. Again, we still have 10 days until free agency starts, and we still got some time where teams can hammer out deals, franchise tags, and you name it. There's a ton of potential scenarios that could shake out, and this guy might not even be available. I get that, but we're speculating here. I would like to see the Browns, if he's there, take a guy like interior D lineman from San Francisco, DJ Jones. He's younger, not old, but younger, 27. 3-year deal or something around those lines. He's probably going to get paid somewhere around like $8 to $9 million or so per year on average, give or take. That's what I've seen based off of a few different places that are kind of like predicting salary numbers for players that are going to get signed this free agency. Biggest reasons why: Malik Jackson, 32 years old, his best days are behind him. He hasn't had a stellar season since like 2017. Since then, he's been good, not great. And again, he's getting older. There's not much you can really do about that. Father time catches up to everyone except Brady eventually. The other guy that they had on the defensive line, Malik McDowell, 25 years old. Nothing really spectacular aside from like 3 sacks this past season. Up and down type of guy. Not necessarily the best against the run per se. But I really think that bringing in a guy like DJ Jones will add a solid additional piece and also upgrade to that interior. Whether they decide to keep Malik Jackson or not, I don't really know. He's somebody that I could see them potentially getting rid of at some point sooner rather than later, again, because of his age and just the effectiveness kind of wearing away. And if they do bring in Jones, it makes him more expendable. And again, I don't really know what you're going to get out of Malik McDowell going forward. He hasn't really done a ton so far. So, I mean, I guess that remains to be seen. He's younger, so there's still time with him. But when you look at DJ Jones' production, he's locked in at least 2 sacks the last 3 years. He's been a pretty solid guy against the run as well. And he might not be the number one answer for the interior of this Browns defensive front, but he's a solid body that you can bring in to be effective and at worst be a rotational guy who's in for maybe like 60-40% of the snaps on the 40 side, or 60 if he starts to really take off and do well in the system there. Obviously, the Browns, there's a chance that they maybe are looking at a guy for the interior in this year's draft. It's a fairly deep class, so I would not blame them. And would I be surprised if maybe they go that route and take a guy in those earlier rounds? Of course not. But you can never have enough pass rushers to sub in and sub out and do what you need to do with them and keep them fresh. So I think a guy like DJ Jones, he's not going to break the bank. He's not a number one guy that you're going to expect to disrupt and, crush the pocket like a guy like Aaron Donald is, but he's a solid rotational player. And I will also say this. You're going to hear me say a guy like this, and you're probably going to wonder, well, that's not a big enough move. That's not, it's not the splash move that I want to see him say. I'm not a super big spender when it comes to free agency. And I've said this in just about all my videos, but I like to reiterate it because I know I reach different people with these because I'm doing different teams every single time. I like to see teams make a splash signing here or there, 1, maybe 2 max, but typically like 1 is really good. And at that point, you're just looking for solid rotational guys at best afterwards. But that's about as far as I like to go there. I don't want to see a team break bank trying to bring in all these guys to be quick fixes. The Browns were, they boasted a really good roster going into the season, and injuries kind of set them back in some really bad spots and some really unfortunate positions that have unfortunate timing as well. So again, a rotational guy, he's not going to necessarily be your number one, but he will be a solid addition to that interior defensive front, and it makes an aging guy like Malik Jackson maybe expendable. The second guy that I have listed on here, We're talking the offensive side of the football now. It sounds like Jarvis Landry is going to be gone. It does not look good for that whole situation there. So if Jarvis Landry is going to be hitting the free agent market, coupled with the fact that the Browns lost Odell Beckham during the season as well via trade, they're going to need to target a wide receiver. And while they could do it in the draft, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they look to some of the wide receivers that are in the free agent market. And Donovan Peoples-Jones, pretty solid rookie season. He had some flash plays. He had a couple of games where he looked really, really good as well. So shout out to DPJ. I think he's a really good potential wide receiver that the Browns have going forward. But bring in a guy like who I have here, wide receiver Christian Kirk from the Cardinals, because it seems like he might end up being the odd man out here. I don't necessarily know whether they're going to keep him around or not. Again, we still got like 10 days till free agency. Maybe they figure something out with him. They move on from AJ Green and they decide to keep Kirk and go D-Hop and Kirk and just continue that on. Wouldn't be surprising. But if he does become available, 25 years old, you can get him on like a 3 or a 4 year deal, something along those lines. It looks like he's projected between like 11 and 12 mil per season on average. Not a ton of money compared to some of the higher end wide receivers that are going to be available in this free agent market. Christian Kirk would be a solid option, good pairing. Is he the sexiest free agent signing? Again, probably not, but the Browns have a lot of talent and guys that cost a fair amount, and I don't want to see the Browns just put themselves into cap hell. If you put like these two averages together of the guys that I have picked out here, DJ Jones anywhere from 8 to 9 mil, and then couple that with Kirk being anywhere from 11 to 12, you're looking at roughly about $20 million in spending or so per year, and that's on the high, like that's like high side numbers. I mean, it could be a little bit lower than that if the market turns out to be a little bit lower for either of these guys. I don't want to see them spend a ton of money. That's why I have Kirk here and why I had DJ Jones initially as well for the defense. But I mean, you look at Kirk's numbers, 77 catches, 984 yards, 5 touchdowns this past season. He had his best year statistically when he was being given the opportunity to be the number one when D-Hop was down. I'm not 100% sure if he can be a legitimate number one wide receiver, but he has shown some really big flashes here and there. The numbers, nearly 1,000 yards, not quite as many touchdowns as you'd like to see, and only 77 catches, but I'm curious to see what his numbers would look like if he's in a system where he is being treated as the number one and he doesn't have to answer to DeAndre Hopkins, or he's sharing the field with AJ Green at the same time as well, while he's an aging veteran, still a presence on the field. I'd be interested in seeing how he fares in Cleveland, having a healthy Baker Mayfield and not the destroyed and injured Baker Mayfield that we were watching this past season. Throw him the ball and see how effective they could be as a combination there. I'd be very interested in seeing that. The Browns are a team that dealt with a ton of injuries in a lot of key spots, quarterback, running backs, wide receivers, like you name it. There were injuries galore for the Browns in a lot of key places. So with a healthy unit, Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb, forcing defenses to stack the box a little bit more. Donovan Peoples-Jones continues to take those steps forward into becoming a more effective receiver. And then, of course, you bring in a guy like Christian Kirk, who's already proven he can be a number 2, but can he take that step up into the number 1 role? And then if they decide to keep Njoku, or maybe they go elsewhere with the tight end position, I don't know. But they could be a solid grouping altogether. But that's who I think the Browns could potentially go after and who I'd like to see them take. My Browns fans, let me know who you guys think in the comment section down below. I'd be interested to see what you guys have to say. But that is all I've got for today. I appreciate you all for watching. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Have a good one.